Assalamu alaikum, everyone. Welcome back to our Happy Strong Family podcast. This week, we are here with a very special guest, Sister Faizah Latif. Sister Faizah Latif has a master's in social work and she's a registered social worker. And she is the best person to have on to speak about something that is a very hot topic right now. We are going to be speaking about our Palestinian brothers and sisters and the genocide that is currently existing against them. And not just in light of them, but also how this is impacting us here today as we speak. So, Sister Faizah Latif, I'll hand it over to you to give us a little bit of an introduction about yourself.
Sure. Thank you so much for having me here. As you mentioned, I am a registered social worker and I received my MSW in May. And I'm just really passionate about helping out in the community. I started off helping out in the youth, and now I work with the elderly population. They have dementia. And I also work as part of a private practice supporting women. And alhamdulillah, I have the opportunity to help out a lot of Muslim women. It really is an honor to serve these communities and to bring about certain changes that we see in terms of mental health.
And I really appreciate how, mashallah, the way that you chose for us to do this topic today and the elderly topic was based off of interest and what's actually going on in the world right now. So when you said, you know what, I'm going to do my topic on the elderly people because this is something I've been focusing on, it was based off of this is a social justice issue now that I want to look at. And the change that we made, alhamdulillah, our plan was not to speak about Palestine, but the reason that we are talking about it is because it's what's happening currently right now. So, Alhamdulillah, this is really a great opportunity for us to discuss and go over what's going on. So, I guess you can tell me first on your own and how has this been impacting you, everything that's been happening in Palestine right now?
Sure. Yeah. So, of course, just like everybody else, it's had a huge impact in terms of my mental health, my physical health, kind of navigating what is going on in the Middle East, and also trying to make sure that I'm still tapping into my personal life and making sure that I'm still staying healthy. But
Yes.
of course, it has led to feelings of anger, hopelessness, guilt, shame, just like any kind of emotion you can imagine. And I think what really helped me is to just know that I'm doing my best.
Yeah.
I'm doing whatever I can in my power to kind of support the Palestinians and to just be healthy in my everyday life, because I think before everything that happened in the Middle East, we were all already having our own personal mental health, physical, like our struggles. And then on top of that, compounded, you have the struggle in the Middle East. And it just kind of made everything a lot worse for everybody in terms of their health, coping. So yeah, I've done some things to kind of develop some coping strategies for myself, and I'm here to kind of talk about how we can kind of utilize those coping strategies,
Amazing.
inshallah, to be
Inshallah.
healthy. Yeah.
Inshallah, yeah. And there's a concept of how our ummah is like one body, right? So if one part of the ummah is in pain, there's that hadith, and I don't know how to reiterate it exactly, but the gist is if one part is in pain, then the other part feels the pain as well. And what you
Absolutely.
said, the impact on mental and physical health, it's like actually real. You know, you actually feel that there's something happening to our ummah. And of course, this is not to take away from the pain of our Palestinian brothers and sisters. It's to say that we are also in a state not similar, but we're in a state of helplessness or we're in a state of guilt. And we also need to focus on self care because that can also better serve the movement and it can better serve them. So, speaking of just like trauma, for example, I was reading a post about PTSD and how our Palestinian brothers and sisters are not going through PTSD. It's not post traumatic stress disorder. It's literally consistent. It's generational. It's happening as we speak. And I think there's certain traumas that also impact us. So could you give us a bit more about that?
Yeah, absolutely. So what we're experiencing today is called vicarious trauma or
Hmm.
secondary trauma. And so what that means is that the Palestinians right now, they're going through the primary trauma of actually being exposed to what they're going through. We are seeing it secondhand through social media, through news outlets, and it's having an impact on us too, because we're feeling the pain of our brothers and sisters, and we are having to navigate these challenges. It's really hard to go on our news feed or turn on the news and see images, see posts, seeing these things that have an impact on our body. And I think a lot of us are not realizing
Mm,
just what kind of an impact it has. Like
yeah.
it kind of leads you to go into a fight or flight stance, meaning like you're in survival mode. You're scared. You feel your body feels like it's in danger. You feel hyper vigilant, really tense and not really sure what to do. And then again, like the emotions I described earlier, you feel sad, you feel guilty, you feel angry, you like all these emotions really come out. And so yeah, so that's vicarious trauma, and that is what we are all experiencing right now. So it makes sense when, individuals are saying, "Hey, why do I feel so much?" You're feeling so much because A, you care and you're a good human being, and that's actually a good thing that you care. And two, because your body's being exposed to all that, and it's heavy, like seeing a hospital being blown up or like seeing children who are being killed. Like it's not something that it impacts the nervous system, and then it kind of like triggers us. So that's vicarious trauma. The other term I just wanted to also mention is disenfranchised grief, and that is grief that is not socially accepted. So it
Mm,
is like right now we are going through that because we feel so angry, we want to kind of like yell out to the world, but nobody's
yeah.
really listening to us,
Yeah.
and it's really frustrating. So we have all these like mixed emotions coming out.
Exactly. Yeah. And what you're saying about vicarious trauma, I think it has to do with identification as well. That it's not just the fact that something wrong is happening in the world. There's so many different on a day-to-day basis we experience so much, but it's the fact that we identify with the cause of why things are happening. For example, this is something my sister and I were discussing because she does a lot of work in a trauma as well and motherhood. And she was saying that the thing is that our bodies are not even seeing them as different bodies. It's almost like they're us because the reason they're being hurt and murdered and killed is because they're Muslim and we are Muslim. So we put ourselves into that situation. So, of course, we're going to feel the vicarious trauma because it's as if we are being hurt ourselves, right? We care so
Absolutely.
much because it's like not just someone else getting harmed, but it's us getting harmed. And we see that from the prophetic way as well of us, Ummah, being as one. So,
Yeah.
this is like, we're definitely going to feel it. So, anyone who's thinking that, why am I feeling this way? They turn back here. And as you said, definitely you are going to feel and it's going to have an impact.
Hmm.
Um,
Absolutely. And I think there's a lot of guilt for there's so many layers to this conversation. I'm so
yeah.
glad we're talking about this.
Yeah.
But there's so much guilt when it comes to not doing enough.
Yeah.
And individuals are feeling like, you know what, like I need to be posting, I need to be sharing. And I think if there's just one takeaway that you can get from this conversation here is that um, you you are doing enough. You're doing whatever you can in your capacity, and you you are essentially doing what you can with what you have and what Allah has given you. And so there are some influencers and some individuals that go on social media and they have a higher threshold and they're able to post and able to share clips and advocate, and that's great. I'm all for that. But then there's also individuals that don't have that capability, and not that they're not capable, because they're holding on so much in their bodies from the vicarious trauma, and they need to step away. And I think they feel guilty that, you know what, like I'm not posting enough, I'm not doing enough, and I should be doing more. But again, it goes back to we all had our lives like prior to this. We have to balance everything out. We have spouses, we have, like children, we have other responsibilities, and we have to balance that out with what's going on in the world. And so when individuals are telling you, keep posting, check in with yourself.
Mm,
Am I mentally in a good, healthy state to be able to post? If not, maybe there's another means where I can contribute and it doesn't have to be through posting.
yeah. How can we identify our thresholds? Like, how can someone say that? What if, like, how do you know, like, is this my, am I able to do this or not? Because I think that's somewhere people are stuck too.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's a very good question. So it's kind of like checking in with yourself. And I think this is a concept that a lot of us aren't really familiar with. But what that means is kind of doing like a self-talk and kind of like asking yourself, okay, like what is it that I need right now? And if that means that I feel regulated. So I'm going to be talking a lot about kind of emotional dysregulation, kind of that's what we're all experiencing. Our emotions are kind
Mm,
of out of whack. And so if I'm feeling healthy, I'm feeling okay, that's great. And then the second question is, what are you intending to get out of posting? Are you like, what is the, the message that you're trying to get across? Because I think we're in a culture of very like with social media, we're very, very quick to react. So we see something coming up on our news feed and then we quickly have to like share it because we're dysregulated, we're angry, we're sad, we're feeling all these emotions like, hey, look what's going on, like I have to share this. But again, checking in with yourself, asking yourself, hey, like how am I doing, what am I trying to get across, is there another way that I can uh talk about Palestine or do something for Palestine that may be healthier for me,
yep.
right?
Yep. How do you think people can basically like, balance like finding that other way? Like what because for example, if someone is not even able to post, I'm wondering if they would even be able to go out to a protest or to be able to even speak to their family and friends about it. So where does that lie? Because of course we were discussing this before as well when we were off live that there's people with physical disabilities or like they're as you're mentioning like for yourself too like highly sensitive. So
Mhm.
how do you work around that?
Yeah, so, yeah, we're having that conversation, and it's just that, some individuals are more sensitive. Personally, if I see, content that is very violent, I can't I don't my body just kinda goes into a fight or flight, or it just reacts, and so, and a lot of individuals are like that, and we may not even be realizing it. We may be
Mm-hmm.
scrolling, and it's like, "Oh, no, it doesn't have an impact on me," but it actually does, and again, everyone has a different threshold. But I think that it's about balancing your emotions. And to answer your question about what else can we do, it's about tapping into yourself and asking, what has Allah given me? So we all have been given different strengths and resources. And if you're sitting there thinking, like, I have no clue, no idea, just take a step back and ask yourself, okay, like, what am I good at? What has Allah given me? So, for example, if I have the financial means, I can donate.
Mm,
If I'm able to
yes.
talk right now, maybe I can go for therapy or I can talk to family or friends. Maybe I can, if I do have the capacity to post and I have like, like a strong following, maybe it's best that maybe I am able to post. But maybe I want to build my connection with Allah, and maybe I just want to sit on the prayer mat and just make dua, and that is going to go a long way, right? And so that's kind of like in terms of what's going on with the Middle East. But then also what I want to talk about is, how are we really taking care of ourselves, right?
Exactly.
And so when you're feeling these heavy emotions, are you taking a step back and doing some movement? Are you engaging in, so as a therapist, I do a lot of work with your inner child. And what
Mm,
that means is going back, revisiting your inner child and kind of like tending to those wounds. We all have it somewhere, and kind of like engaging in creative arts. And if you're sitting there thinking like that's not me, trust me, we all have it in us. It's just it's hidden, or it's and it doesn't mean that you have to be good at drawing or artistic. I consider myself to be a creative person, but not necessarily artistic. It just means that you're exploring that spontaneous side of you that is just letting everything out, your emotions out, painting, playing with Play-Doh, like just being silly and just like letting out your emotions that are stuck in your body.
beautifully said.
Um Going for walks in nature. Like there's so many different things that we can do to regulate our nervous system.
Yeah, exactly. And that form of self care is just as important as doing as well. That's a part of doing. And I think people don't realize that self care is. They think, oh no, I'm just going to put everything aside. I hear this excuse a lot excuse as an excuse of not doing self care, which is, well, look at what they're going through. We need to go through the exact same thing. Like, why, if they're going through this much, then, and like we need to like ramp up and like be the exact same way or like better. So how can you like how can you like kind of counter that when someone feels that way about themselves? That's a lot of guilt and that's a lot
Yeah.
of pressure that someone is putting on themselves that I cannot live this way, which I know a lot of people are experiencing.
Absolutely. I'm so glad you brought that up.
Yeah,
And we're all feeling it. And it's
so
just
true.
it's okay that you feel that way. I
Yeah.
mean, again, we're human, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us this feeling of, okay, like, I'll give you an example.
Mm.
The other day I was telling my parents that uh an airplane was flying by, and I actually had tears because I'm like, for us it's just an airplane. I know that's heavy, but I really felt the impact. It
Yeah.
was it was
Subhanallah. I have
uh
chills from that. It's so true.
yeah.
Yeah.
Um and it made me sad because I'm like, I can't imagine what they're going through, but don't let it consume you. I think that's the takeaway today is like, you're allowed to feel all these emotions, but don't let your emotions consume you. You are allowed to create some space where you do feel really sad, you feel really hurt by what's going on. They are our Palestinian brothers and sisters, and they need our support. They need us to advocate and speak and pray and to help them out.
Yeah.
But I love how you drove home the point of, we need to take care of ourselves. And so, what are you doing to regulate yourself, especially those that have children? You need to kind of be strong yourself so that you are you're being strong for your children. And I know that must be the hardest thing, but it's
Yeah.
just kind of about, again, it all comes down to self care. And again, I could go hours on this topic. It's like, I think individuals, they feel that I just can't, like, what is self-care? No, we don't do that. And like, we need to be like out there protesting. We need to, again, it all comes back to checking in with yourself. Where am I at right now? Do I
Cause
need to,
yeah.
yeah, do I
'Cause
need,
sorry, yeah, go
sorry,
ahead.
go ahead.
Because some people they can actually protest and go out there and they have that threshold as you were speaking about.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, so if you're not able to protest, that's okay. Maybe you need to just go for a walk. If you can't go for a walk, maybe you need to rest and take less sleep. Like, I mean, it's all dependent on what it is that you need right now in this moment. And I think it shouldn't let us take away from any of the pain or guilt that we're feeling because we care so deeply. But also just know that you need to take care of yourself because we also have responsibilities as Muslims of this society.
Mhm.
We have families, and we have work, and we have so many other responsibilities going on.
Exactly. Yeah. I really like how you mentioned the concept of like the care through dua and through connecting with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because that's like a double, that's like a, like you're still helping. Actually, that's what a lot of imams and a lot of scholars are saying, is that make dua for them.
Mhm.
And on top of that, change yourself, because whatever changes you're going to bring to yourself, the same way that our sins impact other people around the world, are good, whatever good we do is also going to impact as well, inshallah. So
Mhm.
first focusing on ourselves and changing ourselves is part of the movement. It's part of being supportive. So
I
yeah.
love that. I
Yeah.
really love that, that you brought that up because change really does start from within. As a
Yeah.
therapist, I can tell you that, I when I'm talking to clients, I really have to do my own work on myself, and I really have to ensure that I am staying regulated. And I'm not going to sit here and pretend that I have it all together. Of course, like, we all have our struggles, but it's just the fact that you're doing your best, you're showing up, and you are trying to do whatever it is in your capacity. So yes, I definitely agree that, and it's going to be baby steps. I think a lot of people are feeling overwhelmed. Okay, well, I don't know where to go. Like, I go on social media, and there's so much there. Like, where do I turn to?
Yeah.
And I love that you said, hey, like, it's really, Islam is simple. Just pray, make dua, just engage in those acts of worship and just have a conversation with Allah. Sometimes we think that we have to have like this very specific dua, or like just talk to him in your own language and just say, Ya Allah, my heart is hurting. And, please protect the people of Palestine. Please help me get through this. I think that something we don't realize is that we want answers. As humans, we always want answers. And I think the beauty of Islam and the wisdom of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is that there's some things that we're never going to know, right?
Exactly.
And it's so hard to comprehend that as human
Yeah.
beings, because we're obsessed with finding out why this is going on. Ya Allah, like, this is so unfair. Like, why do they have to suffer so much? I think just remembering that these individuals, these Palestinians, they're dying as martyrs, and they're dying for the cause of Allah.
Mhm.
And as tragic as it is, we know that there's another life. We don't live for this world, and this world is so short compared to the next life, right? And I'm just getting goosebumps just thinking about it. Like,
Subhanallah.
it really puts things into perspective when
Yeah,
we come from that frame of
exactly.
mind.
And especially with what's happening um with our brothers and sisters, like I think what that's doing is it's making us realize how our attachment to the dunya is. Like our attachment to the world, our attachment to our jobs, our attachment to our lives. A lot of what I'm hearing and how I was personally feeling too is that, and I think now I understand it as the vicarious trauma as well, which is,
Mhm.
oh my God, of course, if they're going through, I'm gonna go through it. What I also understood from that is in a different way, what we're going through is this world means nothing. Like it genuinely, subhanAllah, like it's a testing grounds, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is going to bring to justice all the people who are harming, the settler colony, Israeli settler colony. Like it's going to be where it's going to be brought on the day of judgment the same way that we are. And so if we see it from that perspective, I think it's a lot easier to frame our own situation in our mind, which is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala chose me to be in this situation for a reason. I'm sitting here and you're sitting here because this conversation is going to impact someone in a certain way and they're going to move on to do good. But we're just being used by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for good. So that's also something to pray for,
Absolutely.
is to be used for good within the time that we have on this earth. Because anything else on this earth is not like, it's not that like it just feels like it's like nothing, that's subhanallah, that's something a lot of Muslims I think are experiencing together as a collective.
Absolutely.
Mhm.
So as you mentioned, like, I mean, the Palestinians are being tested and we're being tested.
Exactly.
We're being tested in the sense that, are you driving further away from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and questioning everything, or are you
Subhanallah.
coming closer to him and saying, Ya Allah, I trust you, and I know that my Muslim brothers and sisters in Palestine are experiencing so much. Ya Allah, protect them and help us to keep being strong in advocating and doing whatever we can in our power to
Ameen.
stand up for them.
Ameen. That's beautifully said.
Yeah.
I know this was a part you wanted to discuss in more depth, is the connection with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and how that relates. So could you give us a bit more about how we can relate our connection to Allah with what's going on right now?
Yeah, definitely. So it looks different for everybody. So I think the way that I like to put it is that if you look at the companions of the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, uh, like Umar ibn al-Khattab or Abu Bakr as-Siddiq, very, very different personalities. And I, like, as a social worker, I love talking about psychology and personalities. I love analyzing different individuals and what they bring. And truly, like, that's something that we can bring here as well, is that, okay, like, what do I have? Like, what has Allah given me? What is my capacity right now? And yeah, just building our connection with Allah, it takes baby steps. If you're feeling right now very, very disconnected, I think a lot of individuals are feeling a bit of shame or guilt for feeling disconnected. That's okay. You just take it one step at a time, do what's in your power. Again, having that conversation with Allah, just being genuine with yourself, like, zikr really helps as well, like, just calming down the nervous system. uh Again, like, just praying and really just building that strong belief that whatever I'm going through right now, Allah, like, you are exactly where Allah has intended you to be right now in this
Exactly.
place, like how you just mentioned before.
Yeah.
And
Mhm.
I have to just see what I'm capable of doing right now and go from
Exactly.
there.
Exactly. Yeah. I think even like realizing that connecting to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is a way to help out as well. And I think the reason I keep bringing it back is to that is because I can see where people say, yeah, sure, self care. And then they'll be like, wait, but I need to do more. And then they'll take a few steps and then come back and say, wait, I need to do more. But if you can frame the self care into, this is what I'm doing
Mhm.
for others too, because that's a concept that I think what you mentioned about mothers is, mothers, you need to be strong for your children. So
Mhm.
if you are taking care of someone else, you need to be strong. In the same way, self-care is I need to be strong so that I can go out and give out to the world. If I'm not able to fill my own cup, then what will I have to
That's
give
it.
out of that cup? Right? So I think that all of prayer, all of doing zikr, as you said, calming your nervous system, which I didn't even think of zikr as something that calms nervous system, but
Mhm.
I'd like to know more about that. But that concept is like, this is a way to help out, you
Mhm.
know? Yeah.
Absolutely. I love that. You know, you mentioned the point of it's always taking care of ourselves first, then we're able to
Mhm.
take care of others, right?
Exactly.
And so yeah, there is this back and forth. Okay, no, but like you said, we need to do more. I need to go out and advocate. I need to these people. They're like it's so unfair. And again, saying sitting here saying it is so unfair. I totally understand the anger, the hopelessness, the the sadness, the it's all justified, and I'm not dismissing any of that. I'm here to say that you are 100% allowed to feel that way. But it's kind of like, what do you do with that?
Yeah.
And so if you're on social media and there's somebody that is commenting negative things about Palestinians, are you going to comment and and it's okay if you are like I mean everyone has their threshold, but again reframing it and asking like what am I getting out of this?
Yes. Yes.
uh
The intention.
yeah, is it going to make me feel worse or better?
Yeah.
And usually I think that like it just makes you feel worse because you're like, "Well, I'm not being accepted by this person." It's the disenfranchised grief that I was talking about
Yeah.
before. It's like
Exactly.
not being socially accepted. And I think rather than going to places where we're going to feel worse and commenting and arguing with individuals online, we need to take a step back and say, okay, I need a moment to myself. I need to self-regulate. Yeah, zikr is a great way to just kind of anything that you can do. Like there's even like non-spiritual practices that I'm a huge fan of, yoga, stretching. Your body needs movement.
Hmm.
And I can't even tell you, like last week I didn't even realize how sore I was, how sore my body was from all the stress.
Yeah.
I did some yoga and like I felt how tense my shoulders were and like how tense my body was from all the pain that we're going through.
Yeah.
So yeah, all of these things, zikr is very, very calming, for the nervous system. Listening to morning, evening azkar, these kinds of things.
That's beautifully said.
Yeah.
Engaging ourselves in things that are going to actually, we're saying self care, but what is it? It's this, right? It's actually moving and getting ourselves into that groove. You're reminding me that I need to also think of, wait, how can I take care of myself these days? Because I feel sore as well. And I'm realizing it's from that stress and that pain that we're intaking, and this, we're holding in our body.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, for
And
sure.
we're very hard on ourselves, very hard on ourselves. Where
Yeah.
again, like that's the point that's just being driven here is that like all these emotions and then on top of that you feel dismissed, you feel like nobody's paying attention to us, and then okay, well let me show these people, and there's all these emotions going on, and it's just about taking a step back and looking at the bigger picture. What is the bigger picture? The bigger picture is Allah. Allah's bigger than everything, right? And whatever we're going through right now, it is so painful. And of course, I have my days too where I'm like, this is like, just why? Why are we going through this? But
Yeah.
then I always think back to this is a test, and our prophets were tested the most, and they were loved by Allah. Palestinian Muslim brothers and sisters are so loved by Allah. They're being tested so much, and so now it's up to us to kind of self-regulate and also do what we can.
Yeah. I really appreciate how you're mentioning that stay away or avoid or do your best to regulate and see if you have the threshold to go into places of negativity, of discourse, because not everyone has a stamina for that. Not everyone has the words or the capability for that. So if you see for yourself that the comment section of one of the posts that people are like
Mhm.
arguing is not the space for you, then engaging with other Muslims is also just as important. It's also just as rewarding. It's also like we were discussing in a halakha that a Palestinian sister was saying that, I was posting at some point and I was just not talking to people who are like just not they were pro-Israel or anything like that. And a few days later, I saw that they were also posting the same things that I was putting out.
Mhm.
And subhanAllah, I was like, sometimes it's just like you're doing your part. You're not engaging in the discourse. You're not engaging in like direct arguments because that's something you can't take. And alhamdulillah, the work gets done and allowing yourself to, be in that state of
Mhm.
positivity.
Mhm.
But yeah, we do have a few questions from the audience as well,
Yeah,
inshallah. So we'll direct
absolutely.
ourselves there.
Yeah, Jazakallah khair. So we
Yeah,
have a
okay.
few comments, so let me display those. We had sister, we were mentioning her actually before, Sister Sadia Khan. She's watching and has a tip for us that focusing on what's in our power is so important, mashallah. So thank
Yeah,
you for
yeah.
mentioning that, Sister
Beautiful.
Faiza. We
Yeah.
have some comments coming in, alhamdulillah, very important topic, specifically because of current local global situations happening to families and
Mhm.
children. Looking forward to more of these types. Yeah, more of these types of programs. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reward you immensely.
Ameen.
I mean,
Then we had another comment coming in. Mashallah, much needed. Thank you for this convo. Alhamdulillah. Inshallah, all should listen, especially our youth. And then we had some questions coming in also. Before I get to the questions, I just want to mention that if anybody wants to reach out to Sister Faizah on her Instagram. You can find her at Faizah with an H at the end, the social worker. And then there's also a link there where you can book more detailed sessions if there's anyone that wants to talk. She is accepting clients. She's available for the community. I'll also point out, as I do, like there's no shame in that. There's no if Allah's blessed us with an avenue of help where we can talk to someone, we can get some help. I encourage everyone to utilize that. I also like to mention, as I often do when we have social workers or therapists on, that oftentimes these things are covered by private insurance. So check with your work. Social workers, I know at my work for sure, are covered. So let's take that money out of the big insurance companies that are making billions and put them into the topics of our Muslim providers that are, mashallah, doing amazing work for the community and enable them to do much
Yeah.
more, inshallah.
Inshallah.
So going back to some of the questions. So one of the questions we had come up on the live stream was one of the biggest frustrations is that other people can see the obvious and justify the genocide.
Yeah.
How do you avoid feeling so angry at coworkers, neighbors, friends that have the wrong understanding, no matter how much you try to educate them? So absolutely, that's a frustrating situation. So
yeah.
any tips for that?
Yeah, definitely. No. And I have to experience it too. I work with non-Muslims, and I can imagine it's so frustrating to kind of know the narrative being played out. This goes back to the concept of disenfranchised grief, which is not being socially accepted, this is a lot of gaslighting, feeling like we are the ones who are crazy, or feeling like we are the ones that are not being accepted, and we're kind of like screaming at the top of our lungs, and nobody's able to understand.
Yeah.
And I think it's truly a balancing act. That's what I can say, is that, and that might not be the answer you're looking for, but truly that's what it is. Because if we're constantly frustrated and trying to get our point across, we won't be able to.
Yeah.
There's some people who, no matter how much you say, how much you try to like educate them, they're still not going to hear you. And
Exactly.
so it also goes back to what we're just talking about, the negative comments on social media. How are you responding?
Yeah.
If you're taking a step back and saying, okay, look, I know the narrative, I know what's going on, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will do justice. Um, all this goes back into regulating your nervous system. That's it. And I think, and yeah, it's a lot, because if you remember, like 2 years ago, everybody was talking so much about Ukraine, right? It was everywhere. And keep advocating, keep speaking up. Like there's keep being strong in your like in what you promote, what you're advocating, because it's important. We are the Muslim Ummah, we should be proud of it. But we can't expect everybody to understand, unfortunately. And I think
Yeah.
that's one of those hard truths of life.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah,
Part of anything is letting go as well. Part of getting what
absolutely.
what you want in your life is saying, you know what, I've done my best. I'm gonna let go from this time onwards and see where this takes me. I think in anything that you work towards in your life, there's always going to be that adjustment as well, where you're not holding on so tightly to something that you want. And I think that's fair because it's part of accepting and trusting Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that He is going to make things work out the way they need to work out. So if you see yourself holding on too strongly to certain conversations, to certain problems and attachment, then I think letting go of that.
Yeah, and it speaks again to the concept of what is bigger than this. I'm going into work. I have all these individuals around me that just don't get it. I feel silenced. I feel judged. I feel like no one wants to hear me and what my people are struggling through. Trust me, I go through it. I have to walk into an office and it's absolutely frustrating. But what is my end goal? My end goal is doing everything that is pleasing to Allah. And that is what we live for.
Yeah.
And if you're having a hard time in terms of like trying to advocate to your friends and coworkers, do your part and leave the rest to Allah. That's it. It's the, like you said, like just letting go,
Yeah.
Letting go because we know something is greater than this.
Exactly. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He's the opener, right?
Absolutely.
So He's al-Fath, so like He can give us that victory, He can give us that opening, inshallah.
Yeah, inshallah.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah, so we have a few more questions that came in before, but to that point, our Dr. Rashid, he's listening and he said, don't worry about the results. Allah controls them. Ignorance is widespread and has been prolonged.
Exactly, yeah.
Be patient with people. Anger has to be focused in a useful way, not unregulated and uncontrolled. So Jazakallah khair, Dr. Rashid, for listening and providing that insight. So we had a few more questions come in through our Instagram. So let me get to those. So one of them was saying how to unsee images, horrible graphic pics of impacts of a bomb on people. I can't function anymore. So I'm going to follow this up with another. So I'll let you answer that question. Like, how do we unsee these images?
Yeah.
But the other one is also like, we've been talking a lot about social media and being active and doing our part for the ones that are. Like the truth is you're not going to be able to avoid the images, so how do you sort of prepare to see them too, right? So
Absolutely.
So maybe both those aspects.
Yeah, no, the truth is that I really appreciate this question because the truth is it's traumatizing. We're seeing the secondary trauma is impacting us in a way where it's impacting our lives, our relationships, our careers, the way we see ourselves, everything. It's hard to see. I start off this whole conversation talking about how we are seeing images of bombings and images of children, and it's absolutely disheartening. And again, it goes back to your level of sensitivity. Maybe if you're noticing that there's a lot of posts on your social media regarding this topic, maybe you have to disengage a bit from social media. Not everybody has the same obligation of constantly posting and posting and posting. It is dangerous to your nervous system if you're somebody that feels really, especially if you're resonating with this comment here and you're going, yeah, like I can't function, then you know for a fact that maybe you need to take a break from social media and go for a walk in nature or do something that really calms you down instead of being exposed to that. How do you unsee it? You can't. I mean, you've seen it, and but the I will answer like how you can move forward, and that is just taking care of yourself, putting yourself first. It's not selfish. You're taking care of your needs because you're being exposed to trauma yourself, and you're just doing your best to take care of your mind, body, and soul.
Exactly. It's beautifully said.
Jazakallah khair. So the next question we have here, and so some of this we've already sort of discussed, but if you just want to maybe summarize it also is, and sorry, I always preface the questions and I forgot to do it this time, that asking a question on a podcast or submitting it through Instagram, it doesn't substitute for the therapy if that's something you need. Like, we can't get into detailed discussions. A lot of this is case by case. They're how they impact the individual. So unfortunately, we can't do justice to these questions. It's just the nature of the environment here. But we encourage everyone, like I said, to talk to people you trust, even seek professional help if you need that. But because unfortunately, we can provide some guidance, but obviously it's not a substitute for any detailed conversations. So I feel mentally and physically exhausted since the war started. Why and what are the remedies?
No, yeah.
You're feeling physically and mentally exhausted because you're going through secondary trauma, vicarious trauma. You are being exposed to what is going on in a different way. You are not seeing it right in front of you, but you are seeing it through images, through news outlets. And look, sometimes you have to advocate. Yesterday, my dad and my brother had the news on, and we were sitting there, and this is like a nice like family dinner that we're having, and I let them watch for a bit. I gave them their time, and then it got to maybe 15, 20 minutes in, and I'm like, "Hey, can we change a channel? Can we watch something else?" And like we put on the food channel and we looked at cakes and baking and like and did I feel guilty? No, because I still care. It's not that I don't care for the Palestinians. It's that I was getting dysregulated. I could feel it in my body.
Yeah.
And then I needed to watch baking and like just soothe my nervous system. So you're feeling exhausted because it's not natural for your body to be exposed to this. It's the fight or flight, which means that your body's in survival mode. It's not
Exactly.
natural for us to be exposed to all these images, and so it makes sense. It makes sense that you're feeling exhausted. Remedies, well, everything we talked about today. So kind of like going through your own, it looks different for every individual. You might like coloring or the creative aspect. You may not. You may prefer to go to the gym or go for a walk, or you might like to read or talk to somebody that you trust. But the point is to do something outside of everything that we're experiencing so that you can feel healthier. So it absolutely makes sense, and it's just taking baby steps to navigate your mental health.
Yeah, that's beautifully said. Yeah.
Jazakallah khair. So we'll go to the next question here. It was asking, I find myself numb most of the day and my job is at risk. Any tips to refocus? So I know it's a lot of what we discussed. I'll let you summarize it again, but I just wanted to answer, provide some guidance maybe from the corporate lens where the workplace, if you haven't already, I would encourage you to talk to your management team, right? Let them know what you're going through. Let them know the impact this is having on you. Be open, be honest, be transparent. The management team is usually there to support you. There's a lot of companies have invested very heavily into inclusion and diversity and being
Yeah.
so please do talk to your folks at work, your managers, and let them know so that they're aware, and inshallah that they can also help. But sorry, Sister Faizah, I'll pass it on to you
Yeah,
now.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, brother Kashif, you said it very well. I agree. I think that it's time for us to not be afraid anymore. I mean, if you're feeling these impacts at work, then you do need to speak up. And if you're afraid of speaking up and the fear of losing your job, then I mean, that's a tricky situation to be in. Always remember that risk comes from Allah. And it really should not have an impact because you're feeling the mental exhaustion and stress of what is going on in the Middle East, and you're having an impact. You don't have to be Palestinian to be feeling the struggle. You just have
Yeah.
to be human,
Yeah.
right? So I think you put it very beautifully. Talk to corporate, make sure that you're getting those resources. Maybe it might really help you to feel heard, because I think that's what's going on with a lot of individuals is that, hey, I'm just not being heard at work.
Yeah.
It's like I go into work and no, it's like nothing even happened. I know that's what it feels like for me. It's like there is nothing going on in the world, and it is absolutely frustrating. So maybe you
course.
can be the first to, bring it up at work. Hey, like I'm actually really feeling the stress of what's going on, and HR and corporate should do everything in their power to help support you.
Beautiful.
If they're not, maybe it's worth revisiting the company values, missions, because always remember Allah is greater than everything, and your mental health comes first, and Allah comes first. But yeah, it's just everything we talked about. You're feeling numb because you're experiencing a lot of emotions. It makes sense that you're feeling numb. I have days where I feel a bit numb to everything. It's just about, it's good that you are so self-aware that you know that you're feeling numb. Let's just put it that way.
Exactly.
So I think it's just about asking yourself, checking in with yourself. Okay, like, what do I really need right now to be healthy?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it's also, I really like how you're saying that let's state how we're feeling, like we're numb, and then it's
Mhm.
okay to feel that way. Because I think once you're okay with a certain emotion, that's when you realize like emotions pass through us and we can just almost like watch them, but we can't control them. So you can't control this numbness, but what you can do is you can understand where it's coming from and you can sit through it and say, yeah, I'm feeling numb. Looks like it's actually a very normal response this person is having. It's
Yeah.
okay that you're feeling numb and it's okay if it's impacting your work. That makes a lot of sense actually. So
Mhm.
don't worry about that aspect of what's past, but now how you can work towards it is through, the
Exactly.
corporate lens.
And
Yeah.
just something else I thought of, I remember we were talking earlier about like the guilt of being happy and joyful.
Mhm.
And again, you have to look at, every single day is going to look different for you.
Yeah.
And grief, I do a lot of work with grief, and grief doesn't look the same for everybody,
Yeah.
right? So somebody might be grieving by being angry and like being or a better word I guess for that is being passionate, being really
Yeah.
passionate about the cause and posting. Somebody else might be just living their day to day and posting a picture about their child or cakes or something random, and you might, instead of judging, look at it from a place of curiosity. They're probably just trying to stay calm and just get by, and it's good that
Exactly.
they're experiencing moments of joy. Those moments of joy are needed, especially in this time, like in what we're going through. It's a lot.
Wow.
So
Yeah. That
yeah.
frame of thought is literally a life changer because you said take it out of judgment and into curiosity. People who think, "Oh yes, I am doing enough, and why isn't the next person doing what I'm doing?" They're maybe going through the exact same thing that
Mhm.
you are going through, but they're expressing it in their own way and taking care of other things that are just as important to them. So
Absolutely.
yeah, it's
Yeah.
very well said.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yes. So the next question that
So
came
my
up
turn.
here was, Salam, one of the problems I see is that either side doesn't feel the pain of innocent children and people being killed on the other side. Although they are heartbroken for their civilians' loss, for the civilians on the other side, they see it as a justified necessity. How can we reflect on ourselves and show more empathy and respect towards all the innocent impacted, regardless of the side of the conflict we are on?
Yeah, so again, this goes back to uh it just goes back to kind of the fact that not everybody's going to understand our point of view. And it's so hard to drive that point home because we so desperately want to be heard. We we feel a lot of pain, we feel a lot of anger, and I think this is something I just want to suggest to everybody, is to kind of take note of your emotions and maybe write them down and maybe talk to others about what you're feeling, like we discussed, naming your emotions. And I think that when we start to really explore these emotions and understand that, you know what, like, no matter what I do, people are still not going to understand me or hear me out. That's the sad reality of this world. And we went through this earlier. It's that no matter how loud you scream, top of your lungs, there's people that are still not going to understand you because they just want to hate, or they just want to trample over you. And it is totally unfair. And you're allowed to feel angry and, like, hopeless. And again, it's just driving the point across that uh we need to stay strong in our faith, in our identity. We need to every single day wake up and be thankful that we are Muslims, that we have a higher purpose. Alhamdulillah, we don't live for this world.
Yeah.
We we look at, like, if you look at the Palestinians, the beautiful Palestinians, they've suffered so much, but then we can find so much hope in the fact that they, inshallah, like they are in the next life, like they're happy and they are in Jannah, and inshallah, like, you know, that is the end goal. This is just a test. So if you're feeling really stressed and all these emotions, I'm gonna reiterate what you said earlier. I loved it. Like, just let go a bit, you know, because these people don't matter at the end of the day.
Yeah.
They don't.
Yeah. Exactly. Very well said. Thank you.
Jazakallah khair. So we have some more comments coming in. So Jazakallah khair, very beneficial conversation.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, Dr. Rashid was also posting some comments and tips for us. So about what we can do. So he was suggesting dua at the hajjat, communicate in a civil way with people you know, let them know that all life is sacred and everyone has a right to basics like food and shelter. Then we also had some comments coming in about do your best, so it's that work your best, tie your camel first and rely on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So yeah, so
I love that.
think
Yeah.
there's a few more comments and stuff here. If there's any last questions, please feel free to submit them. I'll just ask a question sort of um from myself. Is switching topics a little bit, is still related, but social work, why did you get into it? What advice do you have for anyone else that's coming to come into it? And do you feel that, you know, we need more Muslims in the field?
Yeah, thank you for asking that, Brother Kashif. So I got into social work at a later point in my life. I feel that we think that life is cookie cutter and we're going in a certain path. I did do my undergrad in business, and I just didn't really like the 9 to 5 hustle and bustle. I did it for a few years, and then I just felt like there's something more. There's something that is igniting my passion. Like, I need to do more. I had the honor of going for Hajj in 2018. Wow, feels like so long
Mashallah.
ago. And it just kind of changed my perspective. And I came back with like a light inside of me that was like, I really want to do more for the community, for the ummah, and just for individuals in general. And I had the calling to go into social work based on my own life struggles and navigating challenges, my own mental health journey.
Yeah.
I've also had to regulate my own emotions. Everything that I'm sharing today has been truly like a work in progress and still is. And it's just about finding the balance. But I truly love I'm so passionate about the work that I do because I love connecting with others. I love kind of the psychology aspect of why people behave the way that they do and kind of helping to navigate resources for that. So I was able to graduate, and now I'm just loving what I do. And I also work with the elderly population who have dementia. So it does feel like, it doesn't feel like a 9 to 5. It feels like I come home and I'm like, okay, like I have stories from my mom about like the old people, and it's just beautiful. Do we need more Muslims in this field? Absolutely.
Yes.
We need more Muslim social workers in in this realm. I would say that there's a lot of social workers, mashallah, for youth, for women, for relationships. We need more for the elderly population. I'm trying to advocate more for them because I do see the lack of resources for the elderly population. And hey, like my parents are baby boomers, so they're going to I think about them a lot when I think about the elderly population. One day we're going to be old, so we need somebody advocating for the elderly as well.
We definitely need you back for this topic, inshallah.
Inshallah.
Inshallah. Talk with the elderly. Yeah. Okay. Jazakallah khair, Sister Faizah Latif. Thank you so much for joining us on today's podcast. If there's one thing that you can give us as a takeaway from today's podcast, what would it be?
Yeah, thanks for asking that. I think just know that, and I'm taking this from the very last question that was asked. Life isn't cookie cutter, so nothing that you're doing is cookie cutter. If one person is advocating and doing all these amazing things on social media, good for them. If you're going to protest, that's your way of showing up. If you're just able to pray and let me rephrase that. If you're able to pray and make dua, that is what you are capable of doing, and that is more than enough.
Jazakallah
Yeah.
khair. Thank you so much, everyone. Keep advocating, keep protesting, keep self-caring, and keep making dua for our Palestinian brothers and sisters. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give them the best in this world and the hereafter. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala provide Jannatul Firdaus for anyone who has been martyred. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bring them justice and give the Muslims victory. Jazakallah khair, everyone, for joining us on today's podcast. Inshallah, we'll see you next week. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.